What up, my freaks? RuinusInsight here, welcoming you to part 33 and the very last part of my Total War Warhammer 3 modded Mannfred von Carstein Immortal Empires campaign. So, as we saw last time, we have invaded Ulthuan and, well, pretty much destroyed a lot of their strength already. Heinrich Kemmler is poised to claim the 7th of 8th books of Nagash, and we, instead of auto-resolving the White Tower of Hoeth, will give them the chance to attack us with this extra army and the garrison as well, as I think it'll be pretty interesting. We got Dryads, which are magical damage and regenerative, and therefore a danger to the ghosts of Kemmler's force, plus of course the massive amount of Lothern Seaguard that they have, and the massive amount of range damage and that they can output coming in from there. Red Duke is poised to attack Jean Tabat and take the two legendary units that he has in his army for a spin. They didn't have time to go to Manny's army, but Manny's army is strong enough. We will try to find any other battles that we can in the limited time that we have this episode, but this is the finale, and we'll just stick to the good and the important fights. And of course, finish the episode off with Mannfred attacking Nagashizzar, finishing off the final long victory condition, which we could have done absolute ages ago, and frankly have made some of our battles easier because of the long victory achieved, but well, it's fine. He's been racking up a little bit of XP and raiding the place, and he's ready to attack and finish it at any moment. So, I believe we don't actually need to do anything this turn unless I'm mistaken, and if we are, I don't really care, because we're going to end the turn and see these guys attack Heinrich Kemmler. He is besieging the place, and he is building a bunch of equipment, which I think will mean that, well, the enemy should attack us. So, let's end the turn, let's head into our first battle, shall we? I feel so weird to end the turn and keep talking. I've been doing all of these old world campaigns, and usually now at the end turns I shut up so that I can then edit those out. But there we go, 2 stacks, and man, that's a lot of Lothern Seaguard, and it's also a lot of Dryads. Do Dryads always have regeneration, or is that an Avalorn thing? I don't remember. Well, should be interesting. The Karen Rates are a pretty fragile unit in terms of anything that can actually damage them, and the Dryads certainly can at that. We've also have a couple of, okay, just the one magic wielder who only has Melkots, but that's still a threat to the magician, so hopefully we can send Kemmler or Krell or somebody to take him out. Anyway, battle 1 of the last episode, here we go. Alright, they will suffer. Straight to the point, Kemmler, and a simple speech to start your final battle. But hey, you can let Krell and do your talking, and by talking I mean beating things into the ground. There we go, Krell is on field, our Barrow Guardians are on field. It is an interesting sort of aspect to these armies where we can summon essentially another legendary lord and 4 units of a pretty darn solid Graveguard. 67 melee attack and defense, 115 armor, 60 armor piercing weapon strength, decent HP, etc, etc. They're not as strong, or at least not as buffed up as our regular units of Graveguard, but they're pretty darn buffed up nonetheless. Anyway, we've got an interesting battle ahead of us, I'd wager, and we are going to give the enemy a nice sporting chance. Rather than rush the first enemy army and destroy them with our Karen Wraiths and Hex Wraiths before the second army makes it on the field, we're gonna let them get on the field. We're gonna let them attack us all together, and on top of it, rather than fighting where the enemy would be disadvantaged in the forest and unable to bring its ranged units to bear, we'll fight here in the most open territory on the map. The best chance that we can give the enemy, essentially. Let's see if it works out well for him. Anyway, we're gonna start the battle out by heading Kemmler directly towards this annoying little unit of Lyrian Reaver archers that decided to annoy him in turn. We're going to stop them in their tracks by summoning a unit of zombies directly behind them, and then another unit of zombies directly in front of them, trapping them in zombies, and hopefully this will allow us to overwhelm and obliterate them reasonably quickly. They've lost about a third of their HP so far. and dropping, and we're going to move in our 4 White Kings with the exception of Krell because he's super slow to try to run these guys down. There we go, and it looks like these zombies actually pulled that off fairly well, as these guys are quite fragile and lost most of their HP fairly rapidly. Alright, good little first blood goes to Chem. And the rest of the enemy army is, by the looks of it, on the approach. Let's speed it back up as they try to move towards us. And we'll try to escape with our White Kings rather than... oh no. Okay, that was concerning. Hopefully my PC can handle this army. It was dropping a ton of frames and making angry noises when I was playing the battle itself. But I did get through it, so hopefully we can get through the replay as well. Maybe try to hold off on using the speed up too much. Anyway, trying to get the White Kings out of there now. Use the zombies to distract the enemy. It does look like one of the White Kings is trapped by the enemy Dryads, but hopefully, well, they shouldn't be able to do too much damage to the White King. Although that 31% physical resistance will be wasted due to the enemy's magical damage. There is, by the looks of it, a noble in here as well. And frankly, the two could duel, but it would take a long time as the White King has very low melee attack and is more of a defensive type unit. Those darn Dryads keep getting in his way, though. And he continues to try to escape while we send our Cairn Wraiths and our Hex Wraiths around. Interesting how the enemy sends a unit of Great Eagles directly towards where the Hex Wraiths are hidden. AI, how'd you know that they were exactly right there? Oh, AI. Why cheat? But why? Anyway, looks like our White King is free, and we'll book it back towards the rest of our army, even as a unit of Great Eagles tries to land and attack Kemmler. He does have Krell to call upon here. The lack of a horse won't stop him from moving several feet, and thus he'll bonk a few of those eagles. And it looks like they lose about 10 to 15% of their HP with the first couple of hits. And the Dryads are on the approach. Looks like we're going to start taking hits from an enemy Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower as well, which is going to target our single Necromancer here. And we will have to be careful, as those single shots may bring it down faster than you might expect. The Dryads are on the approach, but won't be able to fully crash into our lines of waiting Barrow Guardians as we summon zombies in front and take the brunt of the enemy charge. Over on the right flank, it looks like a unit of Dryads was out alone after our Hex Wraiths all got identified by those Great Eagles, and this single isolated unit of Dryads gets run down and obliterated by the ultra-high damage dealing Cairn Wraiths, or Hex Wraiths rather quickly. Same goes for a unit or a Handmaiden, which decided to lead the Eagles and the Dryads here, and will get similarly destroyed by those Hex Wraiths, though the fact that the enemy has identified them is a teensy bit annoying. Over in the center of our formation, Krell has absolutely obliterated this enemy noble, who has lost 90% of his HP, while Krell has basically taken no damage himself. And I don't know why Krell isn't hitting him. I'm just kind of moving together with him. I think the AI is assuming that this thing will move at a different speed than it is. Come on, man. Okay, fine. Just let the Barrow Guardians deal with it. Bizarre action from the AI. Anyway, the Woodsmen, the White Lions, are working together with the Dryads to try to work through our zombies and get to our Barrow Guardians. We got a big old line of infantry clashing with infantry, but this is exactly as we wanted. While the enemy are distracted by our heavily armored Barrow Guardians, they're not watching their flanks. Here come the Cairn Wraiths and the, well, single unit of... I think we have, one single unit of Spirit Hosts that we kept in this army that was supposed to get replaced but never did, and them together with our Mortis engine head out of the trees and start destroying any enemy range units that they could find. All behind the enemy units here, about to get caught and obliterated as well. The Hex Wraiths are done dealing with the Eagles, with the Handmaiden, and with that unit of Dryads, and will head to the enemy's even further back line, and I'm sure the Hex Wraiths will make quick work of all of those units. After all, the Hex Wraiths and Cairn Wraiths alike have close to 90 melee attack. These things tear through anything that they get their scythes on. And considering how quick they move, they can get their scythes on anything they please quite quickly. And there we go. The enemy archers and Lothern Seaguard are very much in trouble here. The hex rates charging on through other enemy units of range in the forests here. And the Strider allows them to move through those forests quite quick. And nice charging to these spears takes about half of their HP, and now it's just a matter of cutting the rest of them down. With the amount of physical resistance these guys have without magical damage, the regular units are just not going to be able to do anything. 95% physical resistance, 8% ward save, and 32 armor on hex rates. And this is why we're going to win the rock, paper, scissors aspect of this particular battle. The enemy dryads were all tied up by zombies and by barrow guardians, and thus all that magical melee damage of theirs was no threat to our hex rates and Karen rates, who are pretty much immune to physical damage at this point. Or at the very least, I only get hit for the minimal amount possible, which really isn't a lot, especially on units that will regenerate and easily heal. Anyway, with that, it looks like the enemy army shatters their back line and gets absolutely crushed by the ghosties. Their front line gets pinned for far too long by the zombies and the whites, and then of course their rear, their real back line here gets obliterated, similar to the hex rates, or similar to the Cairn rates by the hex rates. A lovely fight. I will always enjoy ghostly armies. They're my favorite type of armies to play because I love these super high mobility, sort of fragile units. Although only fragile against enemy spellcasters and magical damage units. Lovely. Anyway, well done, and we bid farewell to Kemmler's army for this campaign. Alrighty, there we go. A pretty darn comprehensive victory, if I do say so myself, and considering it's probably Kemmler's final fight of the campaign, it was pretty good one. Enemy army was obliterated from every direction and unable to bring their range or melee might to bear. Their melee units blocked off and surrounded by zombies and summoned barrow guardians, their range torn apart by hex rates and Cairn rates, etc, etc. And we did give them a nice sporting chance, fought relatively in the open, and allowed their reinforcements to make it onto the field as well. I love ghost armies, they're just so fun. Anyway, good work to Kemmler. We don't need to heal, we don't really care, so we'll just murder the captives. Because we can, and then we'll auto-resolve the remnants of the White Tower's defenders next turn, so that we acquire the 7th book. I guess we'll do the 7th and 8th book in one single turn, as we should be able to attack Jean de Bay immediately as well. Peace treaty, no thank you, Sisters of Twilight, no point in peace anymore. Gilgallion wants to trade, which is kind of interesting. I guess he hasn't been paying attention to what's been happening around him, but fair enough. Non-aggression pact with Stresslath. It's kind of adorable that we didn't leave these guys around. But hey, and Dastan Koldai will actually attack the Red Duke. Go figure. I kind of wasn't expecting that, but you know, I'm willing to fight it. It's a pretty decent stack, and it'll give us 2 opportunities to try out the 2 legendary units rather than 1. So that ain't a bad thing in my opinion. Plus, we're in March stance, which means the enemy will have a little bit of an advantage, probably hence the close victory and medium casualties thing. Go. Alrighty, here we go. Unexpected attack from Dastan Koldai, but this gives us the opportunity to enjoy using the Red Duke one last time on the dragon before switching his mount for the final battle. Plus, we've got our legendary 2 units. Ooh. And the Drakenhof Guard here, which we've renamed the Unburied, look absolutely fantastic. I love the armor, love the shields that they're using. They're the vampires, regular vampire lord shields, and it looks like the polearms they have are of the Imperial variety. Very, very nice, and yeah, it's a very cool looking unit. Too bad we'll only get to experience these guys in, well, at least 2 battles rather than 1, but I love them. The other unit is the other legendary unit, obviously, is right here, which are the Black Grail Guardians, which are the which have been renamed to the Forsaken Company. They look essentially similar to White Kings in terms of their appearance, minus the fact that they're using lances. And here comes a White King. I think the White Kings also use the more skeletal-looking steeds than these guys do, or at least with less barding, unless I'm mistaken. Yeah, less barding on their heads and stuff like that. But it is now appropriate because this army has the Forsaken Company, the legendary unit, and the White King to lead our blob of Black Knights, since they're a pile of whites, and since we didn't need a legendary unit to lead the 4 units of Blood Knights here, who are plenty strong on their own, which we'll find out rather shortly, I imagine. Anyway, the Red Duke will move forward towards the enemy. Mostly he just wants to duel with the Dastan Cold Eye while we prepare to attack with all of our other troops. May as well move forward and close the distance to combat a little bit quicker. We will land and hit Dastan by the looks of it, though it looks like he also doesn't want to fight the Red Duke directly and will attempt to back off using the artillery crews as meat shields here. Enemy Feral Manticore will land on some of our I keep wanting to say Depth Guard because Noctilus, and some of our Grave Guard, but that's alright. And here we go. First of the enemy charges into the legendary Drakenhof Guard. And it is a unit of Blackheart Corsair, so we won't be able to take advantage of our pole arms all that much, but I'm sure these guys will tear them apart without too much trouble either way. Over on the left flank, the first unit of enemy Doomfire Warlocks gets absolutely crushed and overrun by all of our Black Knights, and then pressed into the piles of Graveguard with pole arms and pretty much obliterated instantly. Over on the right flank, we've got 3 or 4 enemy units of Blackheart Corsairs trapped amongst our units of Blood Knights, who are going to tear them to shreds. And considering the anti-large and armor-piercing arrows that the Blackheart Corsairs have, certainly something we want to focus, unless they, focus us down in turn. And it's looking pretty effective as the Blood Knights tear through them like nobody's business. Dastan Cold Eye, by the looks of it, has been pretty much defeated by the Red Duke in the center of our formation. In fact, he's been pushed into the Drakenhof Guard here, who still look absolutely fantastic. Lovely sort of heavier, they look like a heavier unit, you know, like with more heavy armor and shield and everything, which I appreciate. But anyway, it looks like Dastan Cold Eye's army is just about done for. A couple last charges. There we go, Lord is done. A few more hits from the legendary knightly unit. There we go, just to run down a few of the enemies, but it looks like with that, the enemy army is just about shattered, and the battle is ours. There we go. Not to worry, even if we haven't seen enough of these units quite yet, we'll be seeing more of them as we fight Jean de Ban. Lovely. Ooh, and just before we end the battle, I just want to take a quick look at the stats of these guys on the field. So, the Forsaken Company, we got 122 armor, 66-63 melee attack and defense, magical damage, and of course, the Curse of the Black Grail, which is a pretty heavy amount of healing and physical resistance. 50% physical resistance with, yeah, that's pretty darn solid. With 12 units and 11,000 HP, these guys are going to be very, very difficult to bring down, and perfect vigor at that. And then, of course, the other legendary unit, we're at 120, 71, 72 armor piercing. They also have Guardian to help out any lords or heroes nearby. Charge reflection, immunity to flanking, another 25% physical resistance. Cavalry Bane, a solid unit. And let's keep in mind that these guys don't have their veterancy as yet, because we just got them in this army. Not that they're gonna need it. Alrighty, there we are. Frankly, I'm a little surprised that Dastan even attempted that. We did have some minor, very minor losses at about 50 units lost, but of course we just healed them right back up, and it's all good. We'll murder those captives, and that will be the end of this turn. And what do we have here? Oh, these things. We don't really need them anymore. Oh, wow. We get that Delusions of Grandeur thing with the all enemies have lowered speed by 20%. That would have, more of those would have been great items throughout the, throughout the campaign, but whatever. Enemy killed in battle, I'm sure plenty of. And another Trickster's Helm, Sword of Bloodshed. Oh, wow, yeah, get all the great items on the final episode. Thanks, game. Thanks a lot. Alrighty, and province secured Northern Grey Mountains. Fresh prey supply, upkeep for Vargeist and such. Not that the upkeep matters over much. In a couple of turns we'll have 1,000,000 gold or dark favor or whatever. Anyway, we'll occupy the White Tower of Hoeth, taking more damage than we did during the actual fight, and thereby unlock the 7th of 8 books of Nagash. And there we are. Character experience gain plus 20%, funnily enough, would have also been very useful throughout the game, but we were really nowhere near this place for most of the this. And I guess we'll delete this and build a defensive structure. Not that, well, I mean, if Kemmler stays here, the structures really don't matter either. And good job to our allies. Look at them taking stuff and damaging things. They're doing stuff. It's and the King Hikenner as the original is still somehow kicking. Absolutely fantastic. I love it. Anyway, we can ignore the remnants of Dastan Cold Eye's army. It's time to acquire the next of the books. Let's level everybody up before we do so, though. Carriages of Death isn't really... I mean, we just have the Graveguard and stuff, and I assume these guys count as Black Knights? They don't have the hunger, so they're not vampires, and they look like White Kings, so yeah. That's fine. I guess we could just put more points into making the Red Duke even nastier. Fair enough. Curse of the Revenant. He's not really... I mean, he is casting, but he doesn't need to cast as much. He has surprisingly little armor, and frankly, for his final battle, he should have at least 1 point in Dark Knight, shouldn't he? I feel he should. I suppose what we could also do... Well, wait a second. The enemy lord is sword infantry, not flying, though they do have 2 Royal Hippogriff Knights, but I think for this battle, what we'll do is put the Red Duke off the Zombie Dragon and onto the Barded Nightmare instead. Not even the flying mount, and that bumps up his armor, but he's got Dark Knight and he will lead the Blood Knights in combat, instead of having our Vampire Sub-Commander and do it here. Speaking of the Vampire Sub-Commander, we'll go for evasion. We probably won't use offensive spells for the final battle, because I enjoy watching our units fight, so let's get your Grave Ward, and I'm gonna say Earthing into Arcane Conduit. I just wanted to make sure that we have Occam's Mind Razor, because we can use that to power up our units. Alright, next up the White King, who probably has everything that's important. Funnily enough, if we had more points in Esteemed Combatant, would have been somewhat helpful in that fight. Not that we really needed it, but the principle of the thing. Get your Scarred Vet, Deadly Onslaught, and another point in Scarred Vet, I guess. Frankly, I maybe should have gotten... Well, no. Baleful Warding is under siege, useless. Scarred Vet. We're pretty much never under siege, and oh! Because we took the Red Duke's Dragon, he loses a third of his HP, or a quarter of his HP. That's kind of rude, game. That's tremendously rude, but what can you do? Lastly, we have our Necromancer, who has maxed out everything but Gaze of Nagash, which I don't care for, so we'll just ignore it. I guess we could get him more aura size. This is not going to help, this is not going to help, and I guess we could just get Calming or Experience. Let's get Experienced. Why not? Nakari's nearby, and he probably approves. And that we get a follower with a little bit more experience. Let's hit Jean de Bain, shall we? Do we want to reinforce with this guy? I mean, these guys have been around forever. They're not probably going to be used to help, really, but just because. I assume these guys can't run. Alright, here we go. Declare war? Yes. And I'm not going to level up you, because we're probably not going to use you anyway. Your allies, sure. And then the last of the books. The Red Duke is on the approach, and Jean de Bain will not run a Pyrrhic victory. He's got about an elite Bretonnian army as we're likely to face off against Grail Guardians, Royal Hippogriff Knights, a frickin' Luminarch, and Questing Knights, lots and lots of the frenzied Unbreakable units as well. And not only are they unbreakable, but they're also immune to psychology, which is great. Red Duke, you can have War Banner, I guess. Oh, I should have probably given you Strider, but I'm not going to bother doing anything with the banners, so this should be real fun. And a Red Duke on his ground mount. Away we go. Alrighty, here we go. The Red Duke's last fight of the campaign, and of course for this last fight he will not lead his army from a dragonback, but on a steed instead. Going to be a proper knightly battle, or proper-ish. Ooh, I love his shield. Proper-ish knightly battle for this particular fight, and I say proper-ish only because the enemy isn't quite being as knightly as perhaps they should. They have cannons and a Luminarch to fire away at us, and the cannons particularly egregious. And yeah, Jean de Bain, you should be ashamed of yourself, but that's alright. We can simply summon some zombos on top of that cannon and prevent it from interfering with the knightly duels. Looks like a shot from the enemy Luminarch will take out 9 of our legendary Unburied, but that's alright as well, as we can heal them back up. In the meantime, the Red Duke will head directly towards his favored target here, which is going to be the enemy Grail Guardians. Grail Guardians versus Blood Knights will crash beneath the canopy, and it looks like the enemy Hippogriff Knights will land upon the Blood Knights as well, and will face off against us. Beautiful and exactly what we wanted. Some of the enemy's other units, like Battle Pilgrims, are interspersed among the enemy, but it looks like the enemy Knights are taking heavy damage. Those Grail Guardians already lost half of their HP to us. Over on this side, the Royal Hippogriff Knights have also landed, but fortunately for us, while they were looking to kill off our Necromancer, who was supporting the units of Graveguard, they had to land and deal with our legendary Drakenhof Guard. And I'm sure their armor-piercing polearms will be able to see the enemy off. Over on the left flank, we've got a big old pile of Black Knights, led by our White King, as well as the Black Grail Knights. And it's a little bit of night-on-night action here, though I do wager we have to be very wary of the Questing Knights in particular. Maybe not so much the Knights of the Blazing Sun, at least off of charge, as the Questing Knights will probably be a danger to our Black Knights. Let's see, how's that HP looking? I lost about 25% HP on those guys. Definitely have to be careful. Over on the side, it looks like the enemy, or on the right flank, it looks like the enemy Lord has actually decided to join in and attack the Red Duke directly, which is exactly what we wanted. A little bit hard to spot in this, but the Red Duke is in the midst of a duel with the enemy Lord. He was in here somewhere, unless he's already been killed. Yeah, it's still in there. Got 25% HP in there somewhere. Oh, there he is. And by the looks of it, he's got one more hit in him until he goes down, defeated by the Red Duke. There we go. Down he goes, even as his Grail Guardians fall alongside of him, and even as his cowardly Royal Hippogriff Knights show a not-so-royal bearing as they attempt to flee the might of the Blood Knights. That said, the Blood Knights have taken damage. These guys are... The Red Death is down to about 50% of their HP. The unnamed Blood Knights here are down to about 25%, and we can see some of our units of Black Knights had to back off as they were down to about half. That's alright though. Ooh, another charge from the enemy Knights of the Blazing Sun, and it looks like the charge will bring down a few of those Black Knights, so we do have to be careful about it. And while we do have to be careful. We probably don't have to be so for too much longer, as the bounce power has shifted to about 90% in our favor. The Royal Hippogriff Knights have failed to kill our Necromancer, as he was protected by the Drakenhof Guard, which saw them off, and it looks like the Black Knights and the Black Grail Knights are overrunning the questing and Knights of the Blazing Sun. Nice to get a little bit of a cavalry duel here. And you gotta admit, if nothing else, the Knights of the Blazing Sun look fantastic, don't they? I mean, the Empire has, they've got some really great looking knights, and they got a bunch of them too. Good for the Empire. Anyway, it looks like the questing knights and Knights of the Blazing Sun are booking it out of there, and in fact the balance of power has shifted to 100% in our favor, and it looks like the battle is ours. Only the unbreakable units remain, the battle pilgrims as well as the flagellants, which are now surrounded by the Blood Knights, who appreciate the fact that they're willing to fight to the death, even as they get obliterated rather quickly. Because unlike their noble masters who decided to flee the field, because I guess the Royal Hippogriff Knights are not unbreakable, I didn't see whether the Grail Guardians were, but I think they were destroyed to a unit anyway, together with their lord. Who, credit where it's due, once again did fight the Red Duke in a duel amongst his Blood Knights. And there we go, just a couple of the enemy flagellants remaining here. Lovely to see the Red Duke on horseback as well. And there we go. The last of the flagellants falls, and with that, the battle is ours, and we bid farewell to the Red Duke for this campaign. Alrighty, there we go. A very, very nice fight. Several of the enemy units were able to dish out heavy damage. The Royal Hippogriff Knights did severe damage to some of our Grave Guard, and the Unburied here, legendary Drakenhof Guard, were able to hold one of them off. I assume it was the first one, although I suppose it doesn't matter over much. We nearly lost 3 of our units of the Black Knights as they were struggling against the questing Knights and such to some degree, though the legendary unit with 17k damage, here named the Forsaken Company, did manage to hold them off, and otherwise themselves were not taking all that much damage at all, so it was the appropriate move to put them at the head of the companies of Black Knights. I really enjoyed that. Anyway, that is probably the very last battle for the Red Duke. So the Unburied, the First Royal Undead, the Grave Mistakes, Barrow Buddies, Bone Zone, Sands, Syndicate, White Privilege, Forsaken Company, Red Death, and Relics of the Dune Wars, Rapunzel's Reprisal, and that is it. Oh, well, these two got their names transferred. Yes, lovely names, a lovely army, a lovely fights. Happy with the Red Duke and his performance and the acquisition of the 8th and last Book of Nagash. Technically, Arcan holds one, but there's no way to get it from him even if we kill him. Although I feel like it should uniquely be available to us still, just as the principle of the thing, if we were to be able to, you know, defeat him. But anyway, there we go. 7th Book of Nagash is ours. I was about to say we should move to destroy this little remnant of an army, but I guess we can't now that we have all of them. It's time to give the little story a read. It's really quite short, but I've been waiting to do the reading of this since we got the first one. So, starting. Firstborn of King Ketep rather, Nagash was overlooked for succession and forced to join the mortuary cult. He swiftly rose to become a powerful high priest, but envy of his brother, who succeeded their father as king, burned within Nagash like a brazier coal. Seizing his opportunity, he entombed his brother Thutep alive and claimed the throne for himself. Thus began Nagash's reign of sorcerous terror. But a throne would not suffice for the insatiable sorcerer. Seeking greater power, he threw himself into the study of dark magic, melding it with necromancy to unlock the very secrets of eternal life. He poured all he had learned into his blasphemous opus, the 9 Books of Nagash. The next stage of his plan, if successful, would magnify his powers immeasurably. Nagash then constructed a vast black pyramid to harness and channel the winds of magic. Upon its completion, Nagash felt his powers grow tenfold, though the cost to the kingdom was ruinous. Hey, that's my favorite kind of cost. Even as his might surged, the outraged Nehekaran priest kings gathered in secret, devising a way to topple the sorceress tyrant. The priest kings mustered mighty armies and declared war, but to their horror, Nagash raised countless regiments of skeleton warriors in reply. Realizing flesh alone could not defeat such horrors, the priest kings breathed life into the mightiest statues of Nehekara. Stone Ushabti, Necrolith Colossi, and Kemrian war sphinxes fought alongside the living, and Nagash's legions were crushed, forcing him to flee. However, is Nehekara finally rid of his evil? Order finally returned to Nehekara, but it was many years until the kingdom prospered again under the rule of King Altdorf. The mortuary cult was held under close scrutiny, its researches severely curtailed lest there be a repetition of Nagash's horrors. Many years passed in peace until Nagash seemed but a dark and distant memory. All was not seemingly well in the Nehekaran city of Lamia, however. Spellbound by the sorcerer's legacy, Queen Neferata recreated his elixir of life. Though her method was flawed, she and her court gained eternal life, but were cursed with an insatiable thirst for blood. Their dabblings aroused the fury of King Altdorf, and the Lamians fled in search of refuge. Little did these first vampires know Nagash's dark will had guided their actions all along. They found themselves at his fortress of Nagashizzar, where the perfidious sorcerer welcomed his twisted children with open arms. Together they launched a fresh offensive against Nehekara, catching the recovering kingdom unawares. Nehekara rallied its forces in defense, and the war ground on for many years, seemingly deadlocked. After a titanic effort, however, Altdorf finally smashed the undead forces, and the vampires fled to new refuges in the old world, while Nagash retreated once more in abject fury. This time, his wrath was absolute. He cast a foul contagion throughout Nehekara, scouring it of all life. Only Altdorf did he spare to witness the horror. Incarcerated and fading, King Altdorf was visited in his cell one night by a group of cloaked, twitching, rat-like creatures. They whispered to him and freed him, pressing a warpstone blade into his trembling hands. Ascending to the dark sorcerer's altar, the emaciated king caught Nagash mid-ritual. He bellowed a final war cry and ran the sorcerer through with a crackling blade. It was over at last, though Nehekara lay in ruins. But can such reckless hatred ever truly be extinguished? Spoiler, the answer is no. There we go. A very simplified version of Nagash's story, and certainly leaving out some things like the source of, the dark elven source of his magics, etc., etc. The war for Crippled Peak, which ground on for a long time as well, and what caused the Skaven to, let's say, dislike him so. But anyway, Manny will move to Nagashizzar shortly. Though there's a few more things I would like to perhaps attempt. Frederick, are you in range of... Looks like you are just in range, eh? Now, I wanted Gustav Grigorovich to help out with this, though I fear that if we move him in as well to help against Tehenowin, what'll most likely happen is he'll just run away. So I think we'll send Frederick in by himself, and if the enemy is willing to fight, then we'll fight. I hope it works out. Let's level you up first, though. Now, you currently have... Alright, I forgot to... Alright, we were never able to get a Necrofex Colossi in here, but what can you do? Let's see... What can we get here that would actually be helpful to this army? Nothing really, except possibly making Frederick a little bit tankier. I guess we could do Dark Pact for when attacking. A little bit of extra leadership ain't too bad, but it would cost us Bloodlust. And sending Frederick to duel and kill Mr. Tehenowin might be a nice thing to do. I think we'll do it then. The White King, what do you have? You have Cache of Armor maxed out. You are not yet to Deadly Onslaught, so we'll get you Blade Shield. You're going to have to anchor the line, that's for certain. Scarred Vet, Deadly Onslaught, and I suppose we'll have to not have Unnatural Image, but it's not a major debuff, so not a huge deal, or at least I hope it isn't. You're mostly good, so let's go through Ghoulish Tendencies to get you a little bit of extra melee defense in case you get attacked, and unfortunately we won't have the extra point to get Mend Flesh, but it's not like we'll really need to recover all that much. Let's go Fel Rituals just in case for the little bit of extra spell resistance for Frederick, who will move on in and try to get his final battle. Ooh, wait. You are currently allied with Itza and you're at war with nobody. Well, Itza will declare war on us, but I'm not sure that we care in any way. Like so. And I maybe should have moved the Banshee out of the way, but hopefully we can still reach the enemy. Yes, we can. Alrighty, they'll sally out its 2 stacks, then a Pyrrhic victory with medium casualties, which may actually be more. I gotta remember that the zombie pirate gunnery mobs are very much in danger of getting overrun and obliterated. They are not nearly as strong, not even a third, I think, as strong as they are in the Noctilus campaign due to the lack of range, missile strength, and armor-piercing extra damage, etc. etc., that they have there. I think there we have them over 200 range and I want to say 47 missile strength or something along those lines, and that's plus the extra damage from black powder aplenty and all the extra damage that we get from various activations from the gunnery whites. But all good. I'm gonna have faith in Frederick's capabilities here, and well, let's just make sure that he wins. Alrighty, here we go. You know, I do feel a little bit bad. I keep putting Frederick von Carlsberg in these situations where he's outnumbered 2-1, specifically against the lizards, now a bunch of times. And admittedly, his army isn't really designed to be fighting more than one enemy army at once, so it's not such a great thing as if he does get overrun, which is distinctly possible. All of his range units, which make up half his army, will get tied up and unable to do anything. But hey, what can you do? Just gotta keep testing our undead Imperial General and his tried and true pike and shot tactics. Anyway, he's gonna start the battle off by running down this little red-crested skink chief here, who's lost about 30% of its HP, and we're going to quickly charge the red-crested skinks with shields here as well. Obviously, the main 2 enemy stacks led by Tehenowin will come in as a reinforcement, but there's no real need to keep these things around, especially since they were in our way while we try to take the position which we will be holding to fight the rest of the battle. Now, the crabs and the polearm graveguard alike will obliterate that single unit of skinks rather quickly, and I do believe the enemy lord will fall to Frederick in a couple more hits. Though I do wonder whether we'll actually be able to chase him down, especially because the enemy army is going to be here in 15 seconds by the looks of it. Yeah, but maybe this lord is not escaping. One more hit. And oh, you had to jump over the little guy. I mean, I guess compared to the dragon's size, it's quite small, but that's alright. The gunners are there to gun him down instead. And there we are. Alright, now just a matter of time as we... Oh my lord, would you look at that? I almost missed that. That was... I don't know what that was. Some kind of Sotex ability. Big old snake appeared in the middle of our army and ripped through our zombie pirate gunnery mobs, taking, I don't know, 75% of their HP, almost killing off instantly our carronades. Definitely have to be careful, although there's not really anything we could have done about that, as these guys are so fragile. It also took 30% of the HP of the Barrow Guardians, despite their heavy armor, spell resistance, and ward save, and damaged the deck gunners as well. That's not good. It's not good, and I don't know how many more of those the enemy army will have, so we're going to reposition slightly to move our units a little bit further away from each other and see what we can do. Anyway, time for the battle to begin, and the enemy is rushing forward with both armies together. Gotta remember that the enemy has things like Blessed Temple Guard and Saurus Warriors and stuff, not just piles of skinks, though admittedly the piles of skinks are going to be very much buffed up by Tehenowin. And here they come, and the deck gunners will focus down the red crests as much as they can in order to bring them down, especially as they should be fairly fragile. And will take less volleys than the other units would. Up in the air, Tehenneman is in the midst of a duel with Frederick and is hitting him back pretty hard. Tehenneman's lost about 50% of its HP, but Frederick has lost about 40%. Less, certainly, but still pretty impressive. Tehenneman on that Ripperdactyl hits for 948. Very impressive. It's just that he has low melee defense, which hopefully, if everything works out, is his undoing. I don't know what these guys got hit by, but I guess it was another one of those Sotek abilities, because they've just lost about 50% of their HP. And here comes the rest of the enemy army. Our flanks are going to have to be, well, they're going to have to hold, because they're going to get rushed by a ton of units, and I believe there's a unit of Blessed Temple Guard on each flank to lead as well. Just gotta hold the enemy back and allow our gunners to, well, keep on gunning. And we do have, of course, the holes in the line to allow the shot to go through the pikes, but, well, the enemy can go through the holes in our line as well, if we're not careful. And sometimes the AI does like to do that sort of thing. Tehenneman's still in the fight, and ooh, Frederick's down to 30% of his HP, and Tehenneman's down to 10%. I am impressed by the fact that they've been fighting this entire time, and maybe we can watch the aerial duel at the same time as the Graveguard hold the tide of Saurus and Skinks off. And come on, Frederick, you got this, buddy. Of course, Frederick is being hit by some of the enemy range units at the same time. So the enemy is getting a little bit of help, and we are not doing the same thing, as we have not been firing at Tehenneman. And they are still fighting, though the enemy units that are firing at Frederick are being hit by our deck guns from up above. Finally, it looks like Tehenneman is brought down, though it cost a lot of Frederick's HP. And we're going to have to keep on healing him. Our guns are still firing, though it does look like one of them will be tied up by a unit of Skink Skirmishers, which have decided to charge into melee. The other unit of guns has held off the flanking Cold One Riders over on the left flank, but it looks like our units of Crabby Boys are going to have to move to hold off 2 units of Saurus and those Temple Guard as well. And yeah, we are just horrifically outnumbered here, which ain't so great. The enemy has also managed to move through one of its units of dinos, which Frederick is going to have to try to take care of. But that actually does work out reasonably well for us, even though they did tie up a unit of deck gunners, simply because that unit is a reviv crystal, and it's better that it's distracted by what's going on over there rather than healing their enemy line. Handguns and a nice little bit of a shootout with the enemy Chameleon Skinks and Skink Skirmishers, although these guys are stupidly moving forward. Huh, why do they move forward? You're on guard mode. Everybody's on guard mode. Oh, wow, okay, looks like another one of those Sotek things hit, and another 90% or maybe 75% of the HP instantly gone from that zombie pirate gunnery mob. Damn, that thing hits hard. Really gotta be careful with that. Definitely more powerful than any single ability that we have, I guess. Bound army ability at any rate. I guess, well, Noctilus does have that Wrath of Ammonar thing, which is kind of similar in terms of being able to cause massive damage, but our best army bound ability is Face of Death, which is very annoying to enemy range units and enemy artillery, but it certainly doesn't do a crazy amount of damage. And the battle continues to proceed. Looks like we do manage to bring that Basti with Reviv Crystal down at last with Frederick, and we are still firing away from on top of this kill. Continuing to be surrounded, but continuing to hold the enemy off. The right flank is really pulling together, though, as the enemy has sent so many troops to try to deal with these guys. The 2 units of handguns continue firing over the heads of our units of Graveguard, the 2 units of Crabby Boys, the Rotting Promethean gunnery mobs on both flanks, also doing a really good job in holding lots of enemies off, though also taking a ton of damage themselves. But that's what they're supposed to be doing. And we're going to help them out a little bit. Time for a nice zombie Dragon Breath right into the middle of that blob, and I'm willing to bet that that dealt a ton of damage. Frederick is up to 345 kills and 84k into his name, which is pretty darn solid. It looks like the enemy center line is looking to begin collapsing soon, and the balance of power has in fact shifted in our favor, if only just slightly. The flanks still have a lot of work to do, but we still got our gunners supporting our units. Oh man, definitely a very nice battle to see Frederick off. And I see the textures on the zombie pirates on the Vampire Coast units are still kind of broken. Textures on our own Graveguard seem perfectly fine in our own zombies, but I see weird textures happening to the Vampire Coast units. Huh, wonder why. I was wondering if it had something to do with the Noctilus campaign, but clearly that isn't so. Anyway, it looks like Blessed Temple Guard have failed, and oh, it looks like, well, I guess it makes sense. If the Blessed Temple Guard are routing, then the entirety of the Lizard host is routing, and Frederick wins yet another battle against the Lizards where he is horribly outnumbered against all odds. A very nice fight and a fitting debut for the Imperial General. Ooh, and there we have it, a fantastic final fight for Frederick. That was also very close, a heroic victory perhaps, and a well-earned one at that, but yeah, that was very dangerous, and we came super close to being overrun. And as powerful as our own bound abilities are, like Face of Death allowing us to summon zombies in the middle of enemies, that frickin' Sotek ability, I wanted to see what exactly it was, or what exactly it does, because it basically takes 2/3 of the HP of 3 to 4 units every time it hits, and it hit us 4 times. So much of our mana went into healing those units that got hit by it back up, and we came very close to losing a bunch of our ranged units as it was clipping them. It's also got such a huge range to it as well. Damn. Sotek. Nature, you scary. Anyway, we're gonna heal up to full here because we'll want to auto-resolve the remnants here. Tehenoan may have been defeated, but his army still needs to be destroyed. Alrighty, and we're just going to move Gustav to help with that. This should be a quick little auto-resolve, I'd wager, considering that we just won that. Hopefully the auto-resolve isn't going to be obnoxious about it. And oh, it looks like we're okay. Alrighty, very nice. And you can, I guess, murder those captives and then occupy kayaks.
It will be a mass grave.
Like so. And we bid farewell to Frederick and his army, the Immortal Landsknecht, the Balehooks, von Carstein, Temple Guard, Necropolis Guard, Volkmar's Dignity, Kassabar Templars, Drowned Fusiliers, Krabby Boys, Click-Clack Claws. And, of course, Grigorovich, well, he doesn't get a final battle this episode, but he basically conquered the entirety of this southern Chaos Waste on his own, and had other fights, so he did good. And so did his Soul Reapers, Misty Terrors, Ghost of Khemri, and I think that was it. Oh, no, the Pale Scythes as well in his particular army. And Woe and the Whalers, great band name. And Chilling Breeze, as well as Ghostface and Where's Whaley. Oh, that one gets me every time. Anyway, lovely fights for them. There is only, I was about to say one thing left to do, but there's essentially 2 things left to do. Well, obviously the final battle with Manny and Nagashizzar, but there is one other thing, but that's going to take a couple of turns, and I don't know whether it'll involve a battle, but I'm going to make a quick cut here while I get up to it off screen. Alrighty, and we are back, and the thing that I wanted to do just because of the principle was to have Vlad capture Altdorf. So I skipped ahead, 3-4 turns, whatever it was, marched Vlad all the way through the Empire towards Altdorf. Now, we're not going to attack it directly because it wouldn't allow us a cinematic battle due to the presence of the tall walls here. What we will do, however, is declare war upon these guys. And, oh, I didn't realize that Bretonnia. Okay, now we're going to join war against these guys because Ooh, wait, we can't. We're at war. Wait, we're not. We're with the Deceivers. Ha. Yeah, I don't want the Bretonnians attacking these territories since they're undefended. We'll join war against Reichland and... I mean, I guess Wissenland as well. It doesn't really matter. And do this. It's the final battle, essentially. Or final battles. And the two main things that I wanted to do were these. First of all, Ludwig von Deal and Count Dorlock will both hit Nuln. Not that we will ever be able to level it up to tier 5 to raise Blood Keep, but, well, we should still capture the place at least. Way more damage than we should have taken for that, but whatever. Too bad we can't capture, like we don't have a mechanic to capture at a higher rank, but all good. That was the principle of the thing, and then this is the principle of the thing as well. This one, however, will be a fight, as in we will allow Vlad to fight this one. So, you're going to hit Altdorf, and you're going to besiege it, and they will attack us with their 2 stacks, I'm sure, especially since the AI thinks that Vlad's army is weak, due to a number of reasons. So, we'll let them do that, and then next turn we'll fight Vlad's battle, and then the final battle of the campaign. Mannfred taking Nagashizzar. So, let's quickly end the turn like so. I'm just going to skip everything, not going to build any... what is this? Roderick zu Krugenheim... Oh, okay, sure. Move very, very slightly to Drakenhof. Yeah. I'm not going to bother building any siege equipment, siege towers, rams, whatever. We certainly don't need it. Malice Darkblade wants to trade. Sure, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Good that he's still alive out there. Alright, Reichland, and there it is. Pyrrhic victory, medium casualties. Looks like they did not have any other stack nearby, and I did check. I did potentially also want Vlad to fight Karl, but Karl has like a quarter of a stack, and it's all heavily damaged. It seems that he attacked Brass Keep and nearly lost his entire army doing so. So no point in chasing after him, but there was most definitely a point in chasing out after Altdorf. Now, I'm excited to see how the enemy crossbows, 170 range, 23 missile strength, 55 armor, compared to our own, a little bit less armor at 45, but 238 range and 44 missile strength instead. Quite a bit of a difference there. Vlad, 'tis your last fight. Take Altdorf and don the crown of the Emperor while Manny's busy being a bookworm. Alrighty, here we go. Apparently all shall suffer, and, well, that's not so good for the residents of Altdorf by the looks of it. And they have bravely sallied out, and, ooh, a nice volley into our Blood Knights here, who are immediately going to get an invocation of Nehek as the Hochland long rifles and other handguns will fire upon them. That said, a look at the range comparison. Our Sylvanian crossbows are, I think, let's see, down to 160 range on the Hochland long rifles, reduced by the all enemies debuff here. 132 on the enemies, and ours can vastly outrange that of the enemy. Nearly twice as much range, or twice as much distance, is going to prove quite nasty to the enemy. Plus, we got plenty of damage on him. I'm going to quickly focus down this one unit of Outriders who gets pretty much obliterated. The anti-large nature of the crossbows is also probably not so great for them. I'm gonna pop off a quick little pit of shades, not overcast, just on one unit as we weren't able to hit a blob, and just continue in this range shootout. We'll take a few volleys into our Blood Dragon warriors, but they're going to have to sit here and protect our range units as we get a nice little Imperial shootout here. No artillery in our army, but frankly our crossbows are so buffed up they're almost like pseudo-artillery themselves. There we go. Every volley into those handgunners sees them decimated, and we are now switching to fire about 2 units at 2 enemy units at a time, splitting the fire among different enemy units and showing the superiority of Sylvanian crossbows. Over on the left flank, our 2 units of Blood Knights have charged in and are facing off against the Stubborn Bulls, Empire Knights with great swords, and 2 units of Halberdiers and Spears, while the Doggos run around in the back line, and they have, I believe, defeated a unit of Empire Knights, though they have taken damage in doing so. and are now chasing off another unit, and then we'll be moving towards getting the enemy range units. We may be winning the range shootout, but the enemy has so many of those units compared to ours. Alrighty, another few units are booking it on out of there. Is this the Silver Bullets handguns? To be honest, the Silver Bullets kind of now outdone by the addition of the Null and Iron sides, but oh well. They do have magical damage going for them, I guess. Anyway, our Vargulfs are distracting enemies. Our Vargeists have landed and are going after a unit of Nordland Mariners, unless I'm mistaken. Free Company Militia. And of course the Nordland Mariner is decent in combat, but they're not going to have any kind of chance against 2 units of Vargeists, especially if the Vargeists are healed up. Otherwise, we got another Pit of Shades coming in, and I believe this one will actually hit 2 units, so we're going to overcast it and do a little bit more damage. Always loved the spell. It's a very nice looking one. And it does tons and tons of damage, what with being a non-moving vortex as well. Vlad, I believe, has been in the fight for a while now. He has defeated an enemy, either, I think it was an Archlector, or it was a Warrior Priest, I don't know. But whatever it was, it's dead. And now Vlad is going after the enemy general of the Empire, all the while killing off the occasional flagellant as they try to attack him. The general will book it on out of there. And Vlad will take out a few more of those unbreakable flagellants before booking it towards the enemy lord, who, while good luck escaping Vlad, he ran so fast, 87 speed. It's a little obnoxious. Anyway, I love it. The range units are all more or less completely fine, still obliterating any enemy melee or range units at this point that they can find. Our doggos have been running around in the trees, just chasing enemies down, and frankly, it looks like the battle will soon be ours. Of course, can't forget our vampiresses, all 3 of them working together to fight some enemy knights. And they are knights themselves, after all. And if the enemy wanted to bring some Knights of the Realm, we'll do them a favor and fight them as knights would as well. You know, rather than destroying them with spell and with arrow and whatnot. And it looks like with the Knights of the Realm and I guess all of the non-Bretonnian units out of Altdorf, the enemy army will break and the battle will be ours. And I'm just laughing at Vlad chasing them down. He moves, okay, down to 72 move speed, so slightly slower than the Knights of the Realm. Unfortunately, he can't chase them. Yeah, he doesn't generate quite enough speed to be as hilarious when running as Sigvald, but I will never forget how much I laughed during my Archaon campaign at Sigvald running around at like 100 speed or whatever it was, or 120 speed. It's I'm just remembering it now, and it's still hilarious. But anyway, there we go, Vlad's final battle. He certainly showed the superiority of the Sylvanian crossbows as he took out the garrison of Altdorf with his army and didn't suffer too much damage either. I think the biggest amount of damage came into some of our doggos and the Blood Dragon warriors, who admittedly were nearly destroyed and in fact reached their healing cap, but they were focused down by so many handgunners and stuff, so that's hardly surprising. They did their job of protecting the range units, which did so much damage to the enemy range in turn. Alrighty, there we go. Well done to Vlad, and man, I enjoy playing his army so much. It feels so very different from the other armies, partly because of the massive amounts of range units that we have that, as we saw, obliterated the enemy range and got 100 to 200 kills in between all of them. Then there's the fact that the army is super highly mobile, but also super fragile, because it is the only army where we have not a single necromancer, no corpse carts, no mortis engines, and thus no way to keep everybody up and running, so everybody's liable to take a lot of damage if you're not careful. Means Vlad has to work for every one of his victories, but despite having to work for it, he still comes out on top, so well done, Vladdy. We're going to dominate those captives, and we will take Altdorf for ourselves next turn. Balthazar Gelt wants to peace out, go figure. Couldn't quite manage to get a battle going with him, but it's all good. It's all good. Wolfric the Wild, although, well, perhaps if we do, then we just, we can't fight anymore because the world ends. But anyway, peace treaty, no. Not that that really matters. Anyway, yeah, Balthazar Guild was, well, he was way too far from us, and I think his main stack got destroyed here. And she long by probably several stacks belonging to Jiao Ming, and the fact that he lost with his main stack probably means that his main stack was rather weak. Anyway, the Fecondites destroyed by the Empire, by, well, whoever did it, probably Elspeth, maybe. Or by Carl, and he moved away. Yeah, see, his army is basically destroyed. But anyway, what I was saying was, looks like they revived Hawkland there, which is quite interesting. What's more important, though, is we will take Altdorf with Vlad, assuming that the auto-resolve doesn't screw us on this one. And nope, we're good. Okay, it screwed the doggos a little bit, but whatever. Occupy. And there we are. Can't get the occupied Imperial Palace, unfortunately, but it's the principle of the thing. We would have it eventually. And we had to have Altdorf for the end of the campaign. One last fight then remains. Word. And it'll be against the Skaven of a Clan Carrion to capture Nagashizzar. Should be pretty fun. Manny's maxed out as we can get him, and I got him a few extra things, i.e., ooh, let's see what we got here. And yeah, that settlement garrison, look at that. Beautiful. And the army there is pretty incredible as well. The 3 poison wind bomb or wind mortars are going to be a huge issue for us here. And, well, the Skaven slaves here are not, but the warp bombs. 5? They have 5 warp bombs. So oh no, that's going to be really bad for our Graveguard. Wasn't expecting that, I gotta admit. And what the heck? What is this? Standard of Eternal Mourning. Cannot be applied to any unit? Affects units if unit is not... It doesn't say what kind of unit it can be applied to. I guess it has to be some kind of specific unit. Tattered banner, pride of a legion of Nahekara, its colors faded, blah 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 blah. I don't know. We have 2 of these, and they can't be applied to any of the units here. Well, that was a waste. At least we can give the banner of eternal flame to you, and I guess the Lichbone pennant to the Sternsman. We could also do the Banner of Eternal Flame on Manny if we wanted to, but frankly he hits plenty hard, and this will at least buff up a couple of units rather than one. This one is kind of weird, but what can you do? Anyway, final battle as Super Elite Skaven stack. Even the auto-resolve says it'll be a valiant defeat with high casualties. I'm excited for this one. Not so excited about losing half our armies to warp, or half our army to warp bombs, but, well, that's the name of the game sometimes. Away we go. One last time. Alright, either I missed it or Mannfred chose not to speak. Perhaps too excited or too focused on this, his final battle. The battle to occupy Nagashizzar and cement at last the legacy of Nagash. Here we go, we've got a small, well, it is a full stack, but a stack of Skaven slaves out here, which we are going to move to destroy. Because the enemy, we could have left them in the same way that we did the army that Kemmler fought earlier to give them the sporting chance, but here it's actually better that we take all of these Skaven slaves off field as fast as possible, because there's a limit obviously of 40 units on the field, and we want the elite enemy on field rather than the, you know, worthless pile of Skaven slaves. Now, one thing we will do in this particular fight is something we haven't been doing throughout the campaign, and that's using our Purple Sons of Zoreus. Lovely, look at all those rats fly. And Varric's Reavers charging in and looking absolutely glorious as they do. You gotta love this unit. They look fantastic, don't they? I'm gonna miss you guys until the next Vampires campaign, I'm sure. Anyway, very, very nice charges, barreling through those Skaven slaves who obviously stand no chance here, and we're continuing to cast our spells. Purple Son of Zoraeus will be joined by a Wind of Death from Mannfred, who has already defeated the first of the enemy lords. Gonna help him out a little bit by taking a few more Skaven slaves out with a penumbral pendulum from our Vampiress. And it looks like Mannfred has killed off the first of the enemy lords, and his knights have pretty much obliterated most of the rest of the army as well. Loving those charges, certainly reminding me of the Lewin campaign and the absolutely glorious charges through the enemy there. And now we've got an undead version of it, especially since a lot of those glorious charges from Lewin were into massive piles of undead. Anyway, with the Skaven slaves destroyed, it looks like the enemy second and third stack will arrive in a mere 3 seconds, and here they come, so we are going to back off. Unfortunately, though, the enemy will not allow Mannfred to leave due to the fact that the vampire was close by. And they did cast the Howling Warp Gale to keep him in place. Alrighty, and here come the droves and droves of elite Skaven, and more, of course, will get onto the field as soon as the enemy, Skaven slaves actually flee the battlefield. That said, we are going to cast a few things. I'm gonna get a zombie dragon breath out. Gonna pop a second Purple Son of Zoraeus. Granted, the damage probably won't be anything crazy, but we might as well and get it going there. Certainly gets Manny going, I'll bet, seeing all those Skaven fried. Alright, there we go. Yeah, we can see it moving through, but it's barely damaging the clan rats or the storm vermin. But you know, every little bit counts. If needed, we can cast a Wind of Death through the piles of enemies. And besides, we gotta leave some enemies around for them to fight our main stack, as our slower units of Graveguard are all waiting here for the enemy to move on in. And our Black Knights are backing off. Ooh, a nice volley from those piles of Poison Wind Mortars as well. And just gonna keep backing off until they're out of range. And we will charge back into the enemy lines when we're ready. Here come the elites, 3 units of Hell Pit Abominations moving together, and does look like 2 units of Mutant Rat Ogres are in the lead as well. One will head directly towards our unit of Graveguard, the Flagellant Executioners to be specific. And we're going to move into reinforce by having the Vampire lead the unit of Polearm Wielders to apply their anti-large to this Mutant Rat Ogre. And of course, hopefully we can damage it decently before the second one arrives. But that's why we kept the polearm units in reserve. Alright, the Mutant Rat Ogres are in the fights, and of course Manny is still running around or flying around, dropping spells on everything he can. Fata Biuna, Spirit Leech, just damaging those Poison Wind Mortars wherever he can, and then going after enemy lords and heroes as well. If it works, it works. I'm gonna pop off another Purple Son of Zoraeus as well, though it looks like this one will probably do barely anything. It's kind of in the middle of a blob. It's kind of not in the middle of a blob, rather. But that's alright. I don't really expect the Purple Suns to do anything crazy. I just think they look cool, and we haven't used them throughout this campaign. And hey, if we cast like 10 of them, they're bound to kill hundreds to thousands of Skaven. Anyway, it looks like the Mutant Rat Ogres have failed and are both running away. Our Black Knights are getting ready to move back in as the enemy army moves in as well. Here come the 3 Hell Pit Abominations, and we're going to have to meet them. Our White King is here. Our Vampire is going to move back to help out. The Claw of Nagash ready to slow them down and keep everybody healed, and the polearms waiting to get their anti-large going as well. Lovely. Similar to our Black Knights, our other units of Graveguard are going to head towards the enemy. Clan Rats and Storm Vermin will clash with the Graveguard. We can see the Hell Pit Abominations towering over our units on the hillside, but at least with the Claw of Nagash there, they will be, our units at least, will be healed up. Despite the fact that we've killed off droves of Skaven with spellwork, it looks like we are still pretty horribly outnumbered here. Ooh, Death Globes do manage to get a nice volley and take about 30% of the HP off of one of our unit of Graveguard, and the same I'm sure will follow if we're not careful. The Black Knights are in it now and will be charging whatever units they can, sending the rats flying. And beautiful, and we really gotta knock out that unit of death globes. And, ooh, that's not good. Hull and Vector just took 50% of their HP in terms of damage, so we're going to have to heal them right back up. But otherwise, the battle remains in our favor at about 70%. Mannfred has, I believe, killed off another lord or 2 or 3 heroes, and has reached 2,000 kills at this point, as the Purple Suns have clearly begun to tell, and is now going to go after whatever other lords and heroes he can find. The Helped Abominations are reduced to 1 in number, as our White King here has taken one out. The other, I believe, fell to the Vampirus and the Polearms, and now just gonna have to deal with the other one. Distracted with zombies and allow the Polearms to do damage. We see the Sternsman here looking just as fantastic as Varric's Reavers. Though I've always also loved the Hellpit Abomination. Still one of the freakiest units in the game, and more horrific than any demonic unit. You gotta love what the Skaven can come up with, especially with all of those extra heads that these things have. And the fact that they're up there mobile as well, like just thinking about, I don't know, Chaos Spawn and other freaky Chaos units. They don't get a lot of those. Alrighty, and how's that Hellpit Abomination looking? Down to about 10% of its HP, and will be brought down at last. Of course, it will disgorge a pile of Skaven slaves, unless I'm mistaken, but they will perish. And so will the rest of the army, and give up, having seen the Hellpit Abomination and pretty much all of their lords and heroes killed off by Mannfred. There we go, the last battle is done. All 3 armies obliterated, and I'd like to think we did quite well here. Manny also managed to rack up a huge amount of kills and damage, and certainly showed off what he's been studying. Hey, an Armor of Destiny, go figure. A little bit light, but still a nice find, I suppose. Anyway, very nice fight. I might usually have foregone using too much magic in a battle like this, but as I've mentioned, Manny is a lord known for, other than being just the worst, is known for his magic. He is a dark magic savant after all, so yeah, he had to show his necromastery here at the final battle, and show it he did. Slaneshi giggled, but anyway, 2.2 thousand kills to his name, 228 2.2 thousand kills, 228,000 damage, and lots and lots of damage dealt as a gold value. So yeah, that's pretty darn solid. Otherwise, our White Kings, well, mostly were holding the line and hunting single entities, so it's not surprising that they didn't get a crazy amount of kills, but our Vampirus did pretty solid, 19k damage. I think she got 1 damaging spell off, though mostly it was Manny casting, and to be fair, I basically forwent the entire campaign without casting Purple Sons of Zeraeus, but blobs of Skaven certainly does work against them. Otherwise, Mannfred's glory, grave importance, the Sternsman, Hullen Wächter, flagellant executioners, barrow heroes, macabre dancers, barrow blades, Varric's Reavers, led of course by Varric the Blade, the Impalers, the Whites of the Nine, Whites of the Black Woes, tattered banner knights, and the Claw of Mannfred, of course. And as for kill counts, well, all the knights did very well, but it looks like the tattered banner knights show that, well, you don't need a nice looking banner to get the most kills. Otherwise, in terms of the shielded variant, Flagellant Executioners, can execute much more than just flagellants, and Grave Importance show that they were pretty important on the field, getting 29k damage and 158 kills. Very solid. A lot of the damage, I'm willing to wager, came in from fighting Hellpit Abominations, because that's where we sent in our polearm wielders, and still impressive that they still managed to get the most damage out of everybody on the field, or at least of the infantry. Anyway, a very, very nice fight. We will heal up to full, like so. And then I'm gonna assume that we can actually reach the place. We will. Was a little Skaven Slave army outside here destroyed? Okay, well, let's skip all of this. And okay, yeah, okay, get out of here. And oh, wow, great! Everybody has minus 15 leadership. Wow. That's a lot of minus 15 leadership, but probably won't matter here. Close victory, eh? From this? I don't think so, game. But anyway, with that, Nagashizzar will fall. And as it does, we will immediately, as the last thing that we do in this campaign, we will rename it, of course, to Mannfred Nagashizzar means glory of Nagash, I believe, so it also does make sense to name this Mannfredizzar in the same way that we've renamed the Claw of Mannfred and the Black Pyramid of Mannfred as well. Seems an appropriate thing to do. And I believe with that territory having fallen... Okay, I lost track of where we are here. We should... Got the long victory achievement. There we go, folks. There we go. We've done everything that needs to be done. We've... yeah, I mean, look at how much territory we've covered. It was nice. Anyway, that Mannfred's campaign comes to a close. Honestly, I'm very happy with the way this campaign turned out. We tried out a heck of a lot of really interesting army compositions. The Undead Pike and Shot, the Mourngulls and Bone Giants, that was pretty interesting. The Tomb Scorpions and Ghouls and the Sepulchral Stalkers mixed together. Those guys were all really interesting. There was the Living Army, the Ghost Armies were really fun. Vlad's a sort of fragile but high damage dealing army, Bathilda's Death Train, King Hikenerus just being the most helpful lord of all time, and deserves to be in the canon because of it. Basically, lots and lots of great moments in this particular campaign that I'm sure I will remember. And well, I mean, let's face it, this was a pretty darn comprehensive victory. Between us and our vassals, we probably hold a good, I don't know, 2/3 of the entire world's territory. All of Cathay is essentially ours because we have our vassals holding a lot of it, just a little bit in the form of the holdouts here. This is all ours. Ulthuan is pretty much fallen, and half of it belongs to our vassals already. Morathi's a vassal, Nagaron's a vassal, half of Lustria is vassals, and we already broke the sort of armies of Tehenoan, who wouldn't have been able to stand up to anything we were going to do. Anyway, so yeah, definitely comprehensive. Oh, and of course we defeated Archaon, we took Altdorf, we got all the books of Nagash. I mean, there's a little we could have done otherwise to complete this, other than going for full conquest, and that would have pretty much just been cleaning up. Anyway, one other thing. Wilhelm of the Grim Banquet, Ghoul King Hikenerus, and our resident undead Imperial General, Frederick von Carstein, they're all going to be added to the community canon of the channel and stick around forever, and just as Bathilda does for as long as the channel is up. So I'm leaving submissions open for their stories, well, in the comments below, and also I'll do it in the Discord as well. As usual, feel free to drop any ideas of yours, and I'll be combining bits of my favorite comments in a blender to generate their stories. And of course, they will grow over time. Anyway, the new patch just about here, so we've got more campaigns on the way soon, even as this one and others do come to a close. Appreciate you all for sticking with it until the end. All glory to the algorithm, and thanks for watching.